Hey everyone, welcome to Aussie Footy Chats, episode 22, Western Bulldogs Trade Chats. So today I'm going to talk about the Western Bulldogs and also concludes the trade chats. And we're going in alphabetical order, so we've had to follow all the way to the end. And now it's your turn, Bulldogs fans. So this year's season for them was quite an up and down one. It started off in the pre-season game against Hawthorn with an injury to one of their star players, arguably the Bulldogs' greatest ever Bulldog, Bontempelli. So Bontempelli had a calf injury and missed the first part of the season. I think he missed the first 6 to 8 weeks in that range. And, they did win a few games in that time that he was not playing, with Davidson on the rise as a mature age player, helping the team. Unfortunately, Adam Treloar was out of the side as well with injury. So they did have a few players that were injured. But they also had Darcy sort of burst out and be a key position forward line player before he unfortunately got hurt with his knee. But he didn't do his ACL, which is a great thing. Most of the AFL world, loved seeing a guy like that develop, father-son player, into a monster key forward that he is. And yeah, he just looked on fire. I mean, the talks of that people haven't seen this sort of stuff since Wayne Carey, which is a key position forward line player throughout the 90s for the North Melbourne. So there was those sort of comparisons. So, I mean, he has all the talent in the world. Lucky he didn't do the ACL and he come back later in the season. Took one of the greatest marks I've seen for a long time, probably since the Nick Riewoldt type mark up to that side of me there. He took a courageous mark and just put his body on the line. And it won Mark of the Year, which deserves it 100%. So from that aspect, we got the best Mark of the Year this year after some controversies. So, yeah, they didn't make the finals. They finished outside the 8 just, with the wild card added into this season coming up in the 2026. They would have had the chance to play in. Now, they didn't make the finals, so they're going into this year not doing a real lot in the trade period, but there's been the well-documented issues with Jamar Ugle-Hagan, the off-field staff, and how he didn't play on-field for the year, and had a bit of a fallout with the club, and also some personal issues. And he was elected to trade, and the club also elected to trade, both mutual sort of understanding. So the Bulldogs see Ugle-Hagan depart to the Gold Coast in exchange for pick 74. Ugle-Hagan was selected as pick number 1 in the 2020 National Draft. Ugle-Hagan played 67 games in the red, blue and white, kicking 103 goals. So a notable goal kicker. Former number 1 pick, the Bulldogs matched him and took him on as one of theirs. And after putting a lot of time into him and developing him. And pick 1, and they've exchanged him for pick 74. So the Bulldogs didn't really have a real high asking price. A bit of mutual respect to understanding that Ugle-Hagan wants to stay in the system, and he elected to be traded to Gold Coast. So I hope you go to Gold Coast, mate, and can enjoy your football. He seemed like a pretty happy guy on the field and had smiling type guy. I hope you can enjoy your football and, smile on field with your new teammates at Gold Coast. And also with the Bulldogs, now they can sort of move on with their list now too, and opens up a bit of extra cash in their cap space. So they moved on with that and get pick 74. It's not a real lot, and they go into the draft with an extra pick to replace that spot on the list. We'll also talk about the Bulldogs also got Connor Budrick. And Connor Budrick is a small defender who played 55 games across 6 seasons for the Suns at Gold Coast, including 19 this season as the club's played finals for the first time. So the deadline drama came a day after Connor Budrick joined the Bulldogs from Gold Coast, along with pick 70 in exchange for pick 37. So that explains the pick. And that's also the player that they've sort of gone for, a lockdown defender that can lock down on the small forwards. They've elected to go with that. I'll talk about some of the listed players in a second. And I could see why. I mean, they probably need a running halfback. But it's also good to have a lockdown small defender that can maybe free up someone else to play the halfback role. That can run and carry. So yeah, that's essentially all that they did for the trade period. I will quickly talk about on Monday morning, the Bulldogs exchanged pick 12 for picks 14 and 37, freeing up a pick required to secure the Budrick deal. The Bulldogs will now enter the next month's draft holding selections pick 14, 33, 70, 74, 89 and 107. There was also another pick swap, just getting it up, that was with the Eagles. So we'll just quickly bring that up now. So the West Coast Eagles and the Western Bulldogs have exchanged picks on the final day of the pick swap windows, as I mentioned in the last podcast with West Coast. So yeah, the Eagles sent the Bulldogs pick number 53 in this year's draft in exchange for a 2026 fourth round pick, which the deal gives the Dogs more flexibility in this year's draft, while the Eagles decide to move their selection with only 5 list spots. So they're happy to do the trade with the Bulldogs. And that essentially explains their picks, their trades, and who they traded out. And we'll just quickly talk briefly about the delistings of the club. And there's some big names on there. So Jason Johannesson, Norm Smith medalist, premiership player, well documented injuries over the last few years, whether it's from hamstrings or other injuries. Running, dashing type defender, well known for his speed, and I think maybe the injuries to him has slowed the way he's been able to play his game, resulting in the delisting, which is sort of sad, but it's just the way it goes. As you get older, some players that rely on that burst of speed from the endurance side as well, that helps them sort of get through the game. You can have endurance, but that burst of quick speed going back forth again and again is like a lot of stress on your ligaments and your muscles. So yeah, that is a part of the game that he sort of relied on. And if you don't change or develop your game, if you start losing your pace into a different sort of role, that's the sort of stuff that unfortunately happens. So yeah, he had a good career at the Bulldogs. Has been one of their great players over the last few years, premiership player. So also Liam Jones, one of the key position defenders, comes to the club after sort of having a year off between the off-field stuff when he was at his former club at the Blues. So yeah, so he was a tall defender. Played fullback to centre back, and also Caleb Poultard and Anthony Scott, and Caleb Poultard was a sort of running halfback wingman, more of a wing. He had that long mullet. Played at Collingwood for a couple of years, moved into the Bulldogs lineup. Would play okay, but he was sort of the same at both clubs. He'd go missing in games, but he had some good games. Would come across down the wing and run. Would be an extra forward line type player who could kick goals. Defensively, probably wasn't. He's really good running forward, but maybe not so much defensively. And yeah, he was sort of a sort of quite a small lad for a bit there. He was a mid-sized player, but took a while to put on a bit more muscle. So, but yeah, his running ability was quite good. I feel like he was getting better as he was getting older and the ability to have a bit more size on his body. But the Bulldogs have elected to trade him. And, there was, delist him. And then there was some talks about Buku Karmas, who was one of their defenders, second or third size defender. He was talked about getting traded to teams like Carlton, but it never was facilitated. And also the Bulldogs did write up a nice thing about wanting to keep him. I'll just bring that up with my notes now. So despite a late flurry of activity, Karmas did not depart the club after requesting a trade to Carlton, who negotiated the departure of Charlie Curnow to Sydney with seconds remaining. The Bulldogs players and acquisition and strategy manager Michael Reagan, which is a different name for essentially a list manager. All the clubs do quite different names, but that's quite a fancy one. Said the popular Karmas would still have a significant role to play at the club next year. He's really a valuable player for us and offers us versatility at both ends of the ground. So he can play, like I said, as a defender or go up forward and grab the ball as third key tool. And a wonderful person too, who we know will come back into the club ready on day one of pre-season. Reagan said our playing group will wrap their arms around him as we look forward to Buku having a great year at the club in 2026. So I know he's quite a well-liked player. I know he spent a bit of time in the pre-season with the guys, seen a couple of photos of them enjoying their pre-season, so they all look pretty close. And it's hard because he's in that position where he's a bit more in and out of the side. But I felt like this year he played more games and developed his game a bit more better. So I think he'll stay at the club. I guess if he has an up and down year and he's in and out of the side, he might elect to get traded to get more opportunity. And I know that Carlton were looking for that type of player, and the Bulldogs probably need to keep that type of player. They didn't actually add in a key position defender after delisting Liam Jones, which I don't know if in short term might not be good, but they've also got to look at the long term approach where they go into the draft and they grab one of the best key defenders in the draft. And I feel like they're going to need that. Yeah, they didn't go for Stephen May. I know they did try to talk to Jordan Butts from the Adelaide Crows, one of their key defenders. And there was not much outside of that. I think the Crows knocked that talk back. But I think the Bulldogs probably had to give up something to get a player like that. And maybe they've elected to go to the draft and they'll draft one of the key defenders. That's what I would recommend. I think the club really does need a tall, lockdown, big fullback. They just got no choice but to get around that. And that's probably important. So, I hope you enjoyed this chat. That's pretty much essentially all the Bulldogs did. So just like to say thank you to everyone. That concludes the trade chats, and I really hope you enjoyed it. And we'll move on to the draft and the fixture stuff now, along with a guest that's coming up this week. A big guest. I'm not going to spoil it right now, but former Port Adelaide man. So thank you everyone. Cheers.